Do you like being scared? Does the thought of something scary make you jump out of your chair? Unintentional rhyme, but nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. I'm the intro monster that has been come up with because there was no proper segue into the video. And what I say goes. Now, if you're ready for a scare, something truly breathtaking, I don't know, maybe probably go look for that because here we're just going to talk about the movies. But yes, I hope you enjoy. Bye for now. We often think that when it comes to certain movies, the only thing you'll need is a captivating story. But for certain genres, that just might not be the case. Take, for example, comedy movies. A lot of the time, the comedy movies that are loved and revered by the crowds have some of the worst writing story-wise, but people still love them and manage to connect with it. Why? Because it makes them smile and laugh. It gets the job done. And when a comedy movie does all that, and they have a good story, it gets cemented into godhood as a classic. It's the difference between comedy movies that would stick in your head or stick the foundation of film versus the ones that just get forgotten every year. Now let's think about something together. What's the difference between a comedy movie and a horror movie in terms of why people want to see them? So your first thought would probably be something like, oh, a comedy movie is to laugh while a horror movie is to have a little scare. But think a little deeper than that. For a comedy movie, you want carefree, funny vibes, something that can teleport you someplace where you don't have to deal with the constraints of reality. Most of the time, it's a fun, happy world. But for horror, it's a little different. People experience horror for one thing and one thing only. Fear. That's right, people like horror because it excites them and it makes them fear something and immerses them into a world that other genres can't by making you believe in something surreal.
You may only see it once, but that will be enough.
Can you think of something you find scary, like truly scary, or something you could find scary? What would it be? A spider, a demon, the unknown, people, that dog that barks at you from across the street, even though you know they're leashed up, but they're on those metal chains, and it's like, and then there's foaming from the mouth. In the case of fear, there's only ever certain things that can scare us because from person to person, we just vary way too much. And we have so many different values just in life in general. But in the case of movies, they have to hit a broad general stroke. It's to get the majority feel. So even if some people aren't really getting scared about a movie, they don't care as long as they can have the majority of the audience feel something together. Why though? Why is it so important to appeal to the majority? Isn't that how things get diluted and watered down? Isn't that how they become stale? Because you just do what everyone would find interesting? I don't think that makes a better result. People don't want to see something because it was made to be good for them. I mean, they do, but not in the general sense. People want to see something they haven't seen before. People want to feel things that they haven't felt before. The problem that happens sometimes is that there's a formula for a movie that works and the studio just milks it because they struck gold the first time. But the only reason it worked the first time was because it was an innovative project that was able to show itself in its own way, and it had its own story to tell, and it had actual love and care for it. And that's the thing. When movies are loved, they feel fresh. In comparison to others, horror has never really been a thought-provoking genre. See, with horror movies, people watch this to experience the fear factor, at least most of the time. But is that enough? Sure, you go to the movies with your friends, your family, maybe even a date, you're lucky. But besides the point, what's the last horror movie you saw? No, what's your favorite horror movie? Or what's a horror movie that you remember from before the 2000s? Or that middle ground of the 2000s-ish era and before. Do any of these horror movies have anything in common? Probably not. Your favorite horror movie probably has a lot of replay value. But why is it that your favorite horror movie has a lot of replay value? Now, if you're like the majority, it's because your horror movie does something very specific that not a lot of other horror movies do. Or just in a general sense, not a lot of movies do. And that's the fact that it innovated. Whether it's some shitty movie or some godlike masterpiece, they aren't the same as anything else. They stand out. It's not like the random carbon fiber copy of all the blockbusters that's trying to replicate the box office formula for this genre.
In the 80s, kids went missing.
So what is the problem with horror movies? Is there anything there? Well, It's similar to a lot of other genres right now, sadly. And it's just a problem that the film industry as a whole has. And that's the fact that these studios are turning out broad and general ideas that'll just make them guaranteed money as opposed to trying and sticking their neck out for actual good projects that actually mean something. They follow the same exact patterns as the very few individual movies that decide to pave the way and become genre defining. Think with like the found footage genre and movies like Blair Witch Project, and then subsequently the Paranormal Activity franchise. At first, when Paranormal Activity had come out, there wasn't that many found footage genre movies. But after the extremely well success that movie had, they were flooded and oversaturated with found footage projects to the point that found footage movies were just becoming its own little sub trend. And then you have the studios that wanted to keep the ball rolling, so then they turn out so many extra Paranormal Activity movies, and they're just trying to squeeze the whole entire lemon dry before people get tired of it. They don't care about making good movies, they just care about bringing you back in the theater to sit down, which is a big problem that the industry has. And with the success of the first one and the raw scariness that movie was actually able to bring out of people, it just gets a multitude of spin-offs that don't innovate nothing for the genre or for the franchise. They don't try, then they get lazy. So the pattern, from what I've seen with a lot of different franchise horror movies, and the pattern goes something like this. Movie one, very little effects, mostly practical effects. But the thing with movie one is that it has so much heart, soul, and dedication. It has a small budget. They don't really rely on CGI too much, and they just try their best with what they have, so they get creative. And the realism from all these practical effects is what draws you into the actual movie world. The realism of these props versus CGI is what bridges the gap for our imagination to make it into the screen and see ourselves as these characters and actually experience what the world is like in this movie. This lack of budget, it turns into a strength. No one's going to be scared of a CGI air monster that never actually touches the characters, but they are going to be scared of some 7-foot tall practical demon because it's a guy in a suit that the lighting has made look so realistic and the makeup's 7 hours long to just go through and pull you into this world. And the actor can physically see it. There's just a difference to that. You've never in your life seen a 20-foot demon. I mean, I don't know, but odds are you've never in your life seen a 20-foot demon, but I can guarantee that you've probably seen a scary doll here and there, a creepy mask, something that looks a little supernatural, something a little eerie. These studios, they think you're so easy to understand. Just throw out a flashy title, a concept that'll pull you into theater, and these guys, they'll eat it up. They'll eat up that slop. But it's not true. I honestly believe that people, and the very few that still go out to watch the physical movies, don't go out with high expectations anymore because the studios don't put anything good for us to look forward to. They aren't trying to make captivating, soulful stories anymore. They just want a cool gimmick that'll help them sell enough tickets, merch, and have a Halloween costume that'll keep them in the limelight that year. Next thing you know, they're already working on their next project, the one for next year. That's just made for the exact same purpose of a catchy costume, of a catchy design, but no actual substance to it. I think if movie studios wanted to, they could turn out one good horror movie a year. They could, but the rate that they're going, they always try to turn out 2 to 4. And in those 2 to 4 movies, they just have so much random fluff. They're throwing shit at the wall and expecting it to stick. They have 2 to 4 non-memorable movies with a flashy budget, but because they're non-memorable, they're just forgotten to the wayside. This is why a lot of times nowadays, movies with smaller, more grounded budgets, they end up being loved more by audiences. Not because of what they couldn't bring, but because of all the great things that they did. Instead of throwing easy effects and money at a project to solve all the little problems, they put everything on the line, and they had to think creatively to make their dreams known and shown. That's why at the end of the day, effort will always be a lot more noticeable than just money. That's why people want real, but not just real in terms of realistic looking, real in terms of it comes from a different place. Raw, untapped, emotional soul.
Rising from the past to spread new terror.
Now that all that jargon's out of the way, let's compare and see what the old movies did that new movies nowadays have forgotten about, and what new movies are doing that probably could have stood to benefit the old ones. So when we first hear classic horror movie, what's like the classic horror movie that you think of? Oh, it's not Alfred Hitchcock's Birds. No one likes the Birds. Why do we not like the Birds? Please. Everyone forgets about the Birds. Don't forget about the Birds, please. In all seriousness, though, when you were thinking of like a classic horror movie, you're probably thinking of something like Shining, Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, Psycho. If you're really into the classics, Son of Frankenstein was like the first one you thought of, then like I don't even know. Like you're like a peg above everyone, I guess. Friday the 13th, you might be a little bit of a pervert if it's Friday the 13th. I'm not gonna lie, I watched those movies recently for this video. There is some perverted shit going on in that movie. Killer Clowns from Outer Space. If you thought Killer Clowns from Outer Space, you are one quirky son of a gun. You're also the right type of oldie movie watcher too, just saying. Let's be friends. Either way, all these horror movies have one general thing in common. It was fear of the unknown beast. But why is fear of the unknown beast so important when it comes to horror movies? Well, it's slightly important. Most of the time, to be scared, you have to see something physically to visualize it in your head. This unforeseen entity is a way for the movie to connect to you and pull it out. Now, all the movies we just talked about, those are all movies that took this and they went a step above. They don't just bring out some random demon, Pazuzu, oh my goodness. And if they do bring out a random demon, it's not as cookie cutter as it was originally made out to be. The problem with the unknown beast is that they pick a beast that's known. It's supposed to be unknown. You're supposed to be like, holy shit, this scares me. And then throughout the film, this entity always pesters them. It has its own set of motivations. And as the audience, we're supposed to put ourselves in the shoes of the pursued. Very few times do we put ourselves in the shoes of the beast, but even then, those are like special projects, which I also like a lot. But putting ourselves in the shoes of the pursued pulls us in to get scared and fear this beast. That's the difference between this and this. One of these is real. The unknown beast has come to life. One of these, the unknown beast is there, but it's not really video that's in front of you because it's not real. It's not actually there. You're just watching cool effects scare people, but you know the effects aren't there. Are you going to remember these effects after a couple of years? Probably not. Unless they're really breathtaking, really innovative, keyword innovative, you're most likely not going to remember it because they're just copying themselves. I'm not the world's biggest CGI hater. Don't get me wrong. But if they blend it well, then it has my respect as a project. And I enjoy it a lot more because of that. If done right, the movie can truly, definitely succeed because they're actually trying. All right, I've said my piece. We're going to get into the real meat and potatoes of this. I'm going to talk about some of the movies that I liked while watching this. So I saw the first Nightmare on Elm Street. Now I saw like the first 3 when I was like a kid. And for this, I only rewatched the first one. But let me say that the first one was really, really nice. It had a few very cool moments that were very memorable. Like the scene where Freddy's trying to come through the wall and the opening scene where the person spins on the ceiling. Very iconic. It was also good at creating this presence that was always lurking, but you could never really feel like it was there until the very end of the movie, which I thought was really nice. Smile was an interesting one. I went in with the lowest of expectations. Honestly, I was expecting to hate the movie, but I will say that the sound design in Smile was really good. I still don't like how the movie was made just to market itself with a cool concept, but in terms of sound, it wasn't that bad. Now, in terms of the actual demon, it was terrible. It was terrible. The Smile demon was like not even scary. It was very hard to get into that movie and get scared by it. The sound design, it was just taking a lot of good points from newer movies and newer sound design that I think really aided the movie and made it somewhat scary, but it could have been better. It actually could have. I think what disappointed me about the movie was that it could have been better. Alien. Rewatching Alien was very interesting because the buildup for the whole movie, it takes so long. It takes a really, really long time. And although the second half of the movie does snowball really well, the first half, it kind of felt like a bore to get through. It kind of felt like I was like just working on the ship with them, which isn't a bad thing, but it's also kind of boring. Like, I don't know. But that's just like something with like an older movie and like how it probably doesn't hold up to like keeping attention the same way newer movies do nowadays. Halloween. Now I watched a bit of the Halloween movie, so I'm just going based off of memory, but it was good. Making a human character into a monster is a very hard thing for a movie to do. And I think that the Halloween movies really do succeed at that. And if there's any movie series that kind of keeps like their trend up with the same sort of vibes until it gets really supernatural, because they always get really supernatural the more sequels they add. Halloween did a really good job at staying grounded and staying consistent comparatively to other franchises in horror. Paranormal Activity is a really good watch. I enjoy how compared to other movies, it's the buildup always makes you feel a little weird and there's always an eerie air with it. Pearl. I loved Pearl. Pearl was a really good movie. I enjoyed a lot about Pearl, but mostly I enjoyed the performance from the lead actress in Pearl. I think she did a phenomenal job at expressing her emotions, and I think it's really hard when movies kind of take the perspective of what's supposed to be the horror movie's monster, and she does a really good job at taking that role on and crushing it and making you scared for her and of her. All right, and now something happened. When I made this video, the movie Sinners had not come out. Let me say, Sinners review is coming soon. I want to do a review on this movie because I love Sinners. Sinners was a phenomenal movie. If you still have a chance to see it in theaters, go see it because that movie is so good. It's such an amazing experience. You get rewarded for paying attention to the little details. Michael B. Jordan's amazing in it. Honestly, all of the cast is amazing in it. They all do a really good job at showing their emotions. They do a really good job at it. Really feels like you're in this southern town in 1932. And there's just so much good that came out of this movie. The buildup was great. The unknown aspect of the monsters were great. The ending message of the movie is great. The story is phenomenal. They do a really good job at also paying attention to the story, which I think is really rare for horror movies to also pay attention to the story. They paid attention to every single aspect of the movie, and that's why if I were to give it a review, at least with how I saw it, I would say it was a 5 out of 5. I enjoyed it. It was great. But yeah, shout out to everyone that did that movie. Ryan Coogler, the main cast, honestly the lighting, everyone on that crew deserves an applause. Really, from small things to the set, it actually felt like you were in the heat. You see everyone just slightly sweating. It was great. It was a great movie. I think if more movies follow this formula, then videos like this don't even need to exist. And then we could just talk about the bad era of horror movies. But yeah, I enjoyed that movie a lot.
And that concludes the video. I hope you've enjoyed yourself. I'm also the outro monster. I have 2 jobs. I hope you like it, and I hope you have a great day. Stay safe.